Millionaire CEO pretends to be an intern to a new girl in the company. She couldn't believe her eyes when she walked into his office. Sometimes the loneliest people live in the biggest houses, and sometimes the strongest people carry the heaviest burdens. More so, sometimes the loneliest place in the world is a corner office worth millions. She thought he was just another broke intern trying to make it in corporate America. But when she walked into the CEO's office and saw him sitting behind the desk, her world turned upside down. Because the man she'd been falling for wasn't who he claimed to be. He was worth $800 million and owned the entire company. This is the incredible true story of what happened next, and why he gave up everything just to prove his love was real. Before we get deep into the story, my name is Walter, and I bring you wonderful stories every day on this channel, Elevate Stories. Hit subscribe if you are hooked in and ready to enjoy the story. Because tomorrow, I have another beautiful story to share with you, and I do not want you to miss it for anything. Now, let's get into the story. The elevator climbed 37 floors, but Jasmine Washington felt like she was ascending into another universe entirely. Her reflection stared back from the polished steel doors. Sharp navy blazer, natural hair pulled into a professional bun, portfolio clutched against her chest like armor. 6 years of business school, countless late nights, and a student loan balance that made her stomach clench had led to this moment. Her first day as a marketing analyst at Sterling Dynamics, one of Manhattan's most prestigious consulting firms. The doors opened with a whisper, revealing a gleaming lobby where everything cost more than her monthly rent. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbows across marble floors. Young professionals in $1,000 suits glided past, their conversations peppered with references to weekend trips to the Hamptons and wine tastings in Napa. Jasmine straightened her shoulders. She belonged here. Her MBA from Howard was every bit as valuable as their Ivy League degrees, her ideas just as sharp. But as she approached the reception desk, that familiar weight settled in her chest, the exhausting vigilance of being one of the few black faces in the room, knowing every mistake would be magnified, every success scrutinized. "You must be Jasmine," the receptionist said with a practiced smile. "Welcome to Sterling Dynamics. Your supervisor will be with you shortly." Across the city, in a penthouse apartment that spanned an entire floor, Alexander Kane stood before floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. At 29, he'd inherited a business empire worth $800 million. The weight of it pressed against his chest every morning. The expectations, the isolation, the knowledge that everyone who smiled at him saw dollar signs first, human beings second. His phone buzzed with the usual parade of texts from people who called themselves friends, but disappeared the moment his credit card wasn't picking up the tab. Board meetings filled his calendar like prison sentences. Another charity gala where society wives would bat their eyelashes while calculating his net worth. Another business dinner where potential partners spoke to his wallet instead of his face. Alexander loosened his tie and made a decision that would have horrified his board of directors. 20 minutes later, he stood in the Sterling Dynamics lobby wearing jeans, a simple button-down shirt, and sneakers that had seen better days. He'd traded his Rolex for a basic watch, his Italian leather briefcase for a worn messenger bag. The transformation was remarkable, from untouchable billionaire to ordinary 20-something hoping to make rent. "Excuse me," he said to the receptionist, his voice stripped of its usual executive authority. "I'm Alex Collins. I'm starting as an intern today." The receptionist barely looked up. "Marketing department. Take the elevator to 15. "Perfect." In his own building, one of 12 properties his company owned throughout the city, he was invisible. Anonymous. For the first time in years, someone had looked at him without seeing his bank account. Jasmine was reviewing her notes when the elevator opened on 15, and a young man stepped out looking slightly lost. Tall, with dark hair that needed a trim and eyes the color of storm clouds, he wore clothes that had seen better days but carried himself with quiet confidence. Something about him seemed familiar, though she couldn't place it. "Are you looking for someone?" she asked, her voice warmer than she'd intended. He turned, and their eyes met. For a moment, the busy office faded away. "I'm Alex," he said, his smile genuine in a way that caught her off guard. "I'm supposed to start as an intern today, but I think I'm lost." Jasmine Washington, marketing analyst. She extended her hand, and when he shook it, she noticed his palms were soft, not the hands of someone who'd worked physical jobs to pay for college. "Interesting. Don't worry, everyone gets lost on their first day. This place is like a maze designed by someone who hates people." Alex laughed, a real sound that made something flutter in her chest. "Thanks. I was starting to think I'd need a search and rescue team. Lucky for you, I'm excellent at rescue missions." The words slipped out before she could stop them, more flirtatious than professional. Heat rose in her cheeks. "I mean, I can show you to HR if you want." "I'd like that," he said, and the way he looked at her, really looked like she was the most interesting person in the room, made her heart skip. As they walked through the office, Jasmine found herself stealing glances at this mysterious intern. There was something about him that didn't quite fit. The way he observed everything with keen intelligence, how he seemed to know exactly where the executive elevators were located, the subtle confidence in his posture despite his casual clothes. But when he smiled at her, asking genuine questions about her work and listening to her answers like they mattered, those observations faded. For the first time since starting at Sterling Dynamics, she felt like someone was seeing her as more than just another employee trying to prove herself. Neither of them noticed the security cameras capturing every moment, or the way several executives on the upper floors would soon be making very interesting phone calls. Have you ever felt the instant connection with someone that made you question everything you thought you knew about first impressions? 3 days had passed since Alex's arrival, and Jasmine found herself looking forward to work in a way that both thrilled and terrified her. During coffee breaks, he'd appear at her desk with 2 cups, one with cream and sugar, exactly how she liked it, though she'd never told him. During lunch, they'd find themselves in the break room together, their conversations flowing from work to books to dreams they'd never shared with anyone else. "You know what's funny?" Jasmine said, unwrapping her sandwich while Alex sat across from her at the small table by the window. The afternoon sun caught the highlights in her hair, and he found himself memorizing the way she tilted her head when she was thinking. "What's that?" Alex asked, though everything about this woman fascinated him. Her laugh, her passion when talking about marketing strategies, the way she unconsciously touched her earring when she was concentrating. "You don't talk like other interns," she said, studying his face. "Most of them are either terrified or trying so hard to impress everyone they can barely form complete sentences. But you talk like someone who's been in boardrooms before." Alex's chest tightened. "Careful. Maybe I watched too many Suits," he said, forcing a laugh that didn't quite reach his eyes. Jasmine set down her sandwich, her expression growing serious. "Can I ask you something? And promise me you'll give me a real answer, not another deflection." The room felt smaller suddenly, the air charged with something neither of them had acknowledged yet. "Shoot. Why are you really here?" Her voice was soft but insistent. "And don't say it's just for the experience. There's something about you that doesn't add up. The way you knew exactly where the conference room was yesterday, how you knew that the coffee on the 4th floor is better than the break room coffee, the fact that you never seem intimidated by the senior partners." Alex felt the weight of 3 days of deception pressing against his ribs. In this moment, looking into her eyes that held intelligence and curiosity and something deeper that made his pulse quicken, he wanted nothing more than to tell her everything. But the truth would end this. Whatever this was building between them would shatter the moment she knew who he really was. "Maybe," he said carefully, "I'm just good at observing people." Observing people. She leaned back in her chair, and he could see her walls going up. Right. The silence stretched between them, and Alex felt something precious slipping away. "Jasmine, forget it." She stood, gathering her lunch. "I should get back to work." "Wait." The word came out more desperate than he'd intended. She paused at the break room door, and he saw something in her posture, Disappointment, maybe, or hurt. I'm sorry. You're right, I am deflecting. It's just complicated. She turned back to him, and the vulnerability in her expression nearly undid him. Complicated how? Alex ran his hand through his hair, a gesture that had become habit whenever he felt trapped between his two identities. Have you ever felt like you were living someone else's life? Like the person everyone expects you to be isn't who you really are? The question hung in the air like a confession. Jasmine's expression softened, and she took a step back toward the table. Every day, she whispered. Every single day since I started here, I feel like I'm performing. Being the perfect employee, the one who never complains, never makes waves, never gives anyone a reason to doubt that I belong. Her voice cracked slightly. Sometimes I wonder if anyone would like the real me, or if they only tolerate the version I think they want to see. Something shifted in Alex's chest, a recognition so deep it felt like coming home. The real you is. He stopped, searching for words that could capture what he saw when he looked at her. Jasmine, the real you is extraordinary. Your laugh when you think no one's listening, the way you get excited about campaign strategies, how you remember that Jerry from accounting is worried about his sick dog, the way you make everyone around you feel like they matter. That's not performance. That's just you. She stared at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. How do you see all that? Because I've been watching, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Because for the first time in years, someone has made me want to be real too. The space between them felt electric, charged with everything they weren't saying. Jasmine took a step closer, and Alex could smell her perfume, something light and warm that made him think of summer mornings. Alex, she said, and his name on her lips sounded like a prayer. I don't know what this is, but… Neither do I, he interrupted, reaching out to touch her hand. Her skin was warm, soft, and when she didn't pull away, he felt braver than he had in months. But I know I don't want it to stop. She looked down at their joined hands, then back up at his face. We work together. This is complicated. Everything worthwhile is complicated, he said, his thumb tracing across her knuckles. The question is whether it's worth the risk. Jasmine felt herself falling, not just into attraction, but into something deeper and more dangerous. Trust. Hope. The terrifying possibility that maybe, just maybe, she'd found someone who could see past her armor to the woman underneath. Yes, she whispered. It's worth the risk. When Alex smiled, really smiled, not the careful expression he wore for everyone else, Jasmine felt the last of her defenses crumble. Neither of them noticed the senior partner, who had chosen that moment to walk past the break room, or the way his eyebrows shot up when he recognized the man he'd been looking for all week. The next morning, Jasmine stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, trying to convince herself that yesterday's moment in the break room had been a mistake. Professional boundaries existed for a reason. She was here to build a career, not to get swept up in some office romance that could derail everything she'd worked for. But when she closed her eyes, she could still feel the warmth of Alex's hand covering hers, still hearing the way he'd said her name like it meant something. Get it together, Washington, she muttered to herself, adjusting her blazer. You're not some schoolgirl with a crush. 3 floors up, Alex sat in his real office, the corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows and a desk that cost more than most people's cars. He'd arrived early, taking his private elevator to avoid the main lobby where Jasmine might see him. The familiar weight of his executive responsibilities pressed down on him as he reviewed quarterly reports and approved budget allocations. His assistant, Patricia, knocked and entered with his usual morning briefing. Sir, we have a situation. Security flagged some unusual activity in the intern program. Someone's been asking questions about Alex Collins. Alex's blood ran cold. What kind of questions? Background verification. Apparently, one of the HR coordinators couldn't find his application in the system and started digging deeper. Patricia's expression was carefully neutral. I've handled it for now, but sir, this masquerade is becoming risky. If the wrong person discovers your identity. I know. Alex turned toward the window, watching the city wake up below. Somewhere in this building, Jasmine was probably settling in at her desk, reviewing campaign proposals with the focused intensity that made his chest tight with admiration. Just give me a few more days. Mr. Kane, with all due respect, you're playing with fire. If this gets out to the board, to the media. Alex's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. His heart jumped until he realized it couldn't be Jasmine. They hadn't exchanged numbers yet. The board meeting moved to 2 p.m. today. Quarterly review. Don't be late. Thompson. The reminder of his real life felt like a slap. In 4 hours, he'd be sitting at the head of a conference table, making decisions that affected thousands of employees and millions of dollars. But right now, all he wanted was to take the elevator down to the 15th floor and see if Jasmine had brought lunch again. Meanwhile, Jasmine was having her own crisis of confidence. Her cubicle neighbor, Tiffany, leaned over the partition with barely concealed gossip. "Girl, you need to be careful with that intern," Tiffany said, her voice low but urgent. "What do you mean?" Jasmine asked, though her stomach clenched with sudden anxiety. "I heard from Linda in HR that there's something off about his paperwork. Like majorly off. No employment history, references that don't check out, the whole thing screams fake identity." Jasmine's hands stilled on her keyboard. Fake identity. I'm just saying, maybe he's not who he says he is. And honey, you don't need that kind of drama in your life. Not when you're just getting started here. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of doubt and second-guessing. Every interaction from the past 3 days took on a different color. His expensive-looking watch that he claimed was a gift. The way he'd known exactly where to find the good coffee. His confidence around senior executives who should have intimidated a college intern. When Alex appeared at her desk around noon with his usual offering of coffee, Jasmine felt her walls slam back into place. "Thanks, but I brought my own today," she said without looking up from her computer screen. Alex's smile faltered. "Everything okay? You seem distant. Just focused on work." The words came out sharper than she'd intended. Which is what we're both here for, right? Work. The emphasis on the last word hit Alex like a physical blow. He set the coffee cup down slowly, recognizing the shift in her tone, the way she'd retreated behind professional courtesy. "Jasmine, did I do something wrong?" She finally looked up at him, and Alex saw walls in her eyes that hadn't been there yesterday. "I just think we should keep things professional. I don't really know anything about you, and mixing business with personal, it never ends well. You don't know anything about me." The truth of that statement felt like swallowing glass. "If you want to know about me, just ask." "Really?" Jasmine's voice carried a challenge now. "Okay, where did you go to school? What's your employment history? Why are there no references for you in the system? Why does someone who claims to be a broke intern have hands that have never done manual labor and know exactly where the executive dining room is located?" Each question was a dart finding its target. Alex felt his carefully constructed story crumbling, and with it, any hope of salvaging what they'd started to build. "It's complicated," he said quietly. "There's that word again." Jasmine's laugh was bitter. "You know what, Alex, or whoever you really are, I don't have time for complicated things. I have a career to build and goals to achieve, and I can't afford to get tangled up with someone who won't even be honest about his own name." The accusation hung between them like a wall. Alex wanted to tell her everything, about the loneliness that had driven him to this deception, about how she'd made him feel human again, about the way her laugh had become the best part of his day. Instead, he just stood there, trapped by his own lies. "You're right," he said finally. "I should go." As he walked away, Jasmine felt something crack inside her chest. But she'd learned long ago that trusting the wrong person could cost everything. Better to be alone than to be a fool. Neither of them saw the senior partner watching from the mezzanine level, his phone already pressed to his ear, making a call that would change everything. The fire alarm shrieked through Sterling Dynamics at 3:47 p.m., just as Jasmine was losing herself in quarterly projections and Alex was 3 floors up, trapped in the most tedious board meeting of his life. Emergency lights flashed as automated voices directed everyone to evacuate via the stairwells. Electrical malfunction on floors 12 through 20, the security guard announced to the crowd gathering in the lobby. Buildings on lockdown until the fire department gives the all clear. Could be several hours. Jasmine groaned, clutching her laptop bag. She had a presentation due tomorrow morning, and all her research was trapped upstairs. The October evening was turning cold, and she hadn't thought to grab her jacket. Hey! She turned to find Alex standing behind her, looking as frustrated as she felt. He'd loosened his tie, when had he started wearing ties, and his hair was disheveled from the rushed evacuation. Hey yourself, she said coolly, though seeing him made her chest tighten in ways she was trying to ignore. Look, I know things are weird between us right now, but… He gestured helplessly at the chaos around them. My apartment is 2 blocks away. I've got coffee, Wi-Fi, and heat. If you need to work on anything. Jasmine's first instinct was to say no. She'd been successfully avoiding him for 2 days, eating lunch at her desk and taking different routes through the office. But her laptop battery was dying, her presentation was half finished, and the alternative was sitting in a crowded Starbucks for the next 4 hours. Fine, she said. But this is just practical. Nothing else. Of course, Alex agreed, though something flickered in his eyes. Just practical. 20 minutes later, Jasmine stood in the doorway of Alex's apartment and felt her world tilt sideways. The space was enormous, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson River, modern furniture that belonged in architectural magazines, art on the walls that she was pretty sure was original. This wasn't some scrappy intern's crash pad. This was serious money. Alex, she said slowly, what the hell is this? He'd been dreading this moment since he'd made the offer, but seeing her standing there, beautiful and bewildered and starting to look angry, made him realize there was no going back. I can explain, he said, closing the door behind them. You can explain how an unpaid intern affords a penthouse apartment in Manhattan? Her voice was rising, all the suspicions of the past few days crystallizing into fury. Or maybe you can explain why your coffee table costs more than my entire student loan debt? Alex ran his hand through his hair, that gesture she was beginning to recognize as his tell when he was cornered. Jasmine, please, just let me. Oh my God. She was looking at him differently now, really seeing him for the first time. The way he carried himself, the unconscious authority in his posture, the expensive watch he'd stopped trying to hide. You're not an intern at all, are you? The silence stretched between them like a chasm. No, he said quietly. I'm not. Jasmine sank onto his ridiculously expensive couch, her laptop bag sliding to the floor. Then who are you? My name is Alexander Kane. I own Sterling Dynamics. I own the building we just evacuated. The words hit her like physical blows. You own. She stared at him, pieces clicking into place with horrible clarity. You're the CEO. You're the mysterious billionaire everyone whispers about. The one who never shows his face at company events. Yes. And you've been lying to me for a week. Yes. She stood up so fast it made her dizzy. I trusted you. I told you things about myself that I've never told anyone. I let you see. Her voice cracked. God, I am such an idiot. Jasmine, please. Don't. She held up her hand, and Alex saw tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. Just don't. Was any of it real? Our conversations, the way you looked at me, any of it? All of it was real, he said desperately. Everything I told you about feeling like I was living someone else's life, about wanting to be seen for who I really am, that was all true. Except you never let me see who you really are. The words exploded out of her. You let me believe you were some struggling intern, while you're probably worth more than everyone in that building combined. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? Alex took a step toward her, and she backed away. I never meant to humiliate you. I wanted someone to like me for me, not for what I could give them. So you decided to test me? Like some twisted social experiment. Her laugh was sharp and bitter. Well, congratulations, you proved your point. The poor black girl from Queens doesn't care about money. Feel better now. That's not what this was about. Then what was it about, Alexander? His full name sounded like an accusation on her lips. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like a rich man amusing himself with someone he saw as beneath him. The accusation hit him like a punch to the gut. You think I see you as beneath me? I think you see me as entertainment. Why else would someone with your resources waste time pretending to be an intern? Why else would you lie to my face for days while I made a fool of myself talking about my hopes and dreams and student loans? Rain had started pattering against the windows, and Jasmine realized she was trapped here until the building reopened or the storm passed. The irony wasn't lost on her, stuck in a gilded cage with the man who'd just shattered her trust. I'm not leaving, she said, seeing his expression. I need to finish this presentation, and I can't afford to lose this job. But we're not talking about anything that isn't work-related. Understood. Alex nodded, though every instinct screamed at him to fight for what they'd started to build. Understood. As thunder rumbled outside and Jasmine settled at his dining table with her laptop, both of them felt the weight of words that couldn't be taken back and trust that might be irreparably broken. For 2 hours, they maintained the pretense of professional distance. Jasmine worked on her presentation while Alex sat across the room, ostensibly reviewing reports on his laptop, but actually stealing glances at her profile. The rain continued its assault on the windows, and the silence between them felt heavier than the storm clouds outside. When Jasmine's phone rang, she answered without checking the caller ID. Jazz, baby, how's the new job treating you? Her grandmother's warm voice filled the space, and Jasmine felt her carefully constructed walls wobble. Hey, Grandma. It's fine. Challenging. She avoided looking at Alex, though she could feel his attention shift to her conversation. You sound tired, sweetheart. Are you eating enough? Getting enough sleep? I know how you get when you're stressed, all work and no rest. Despite everything, Jasmine smiled. I'm eating, Grandma. Promise. Good. Because I didn't raise you to run yourself into the ground chasing other people's approval. You remember what I told you when you started that fancy school? That I belong anywhere I choose to be, Jasmine recited, the familiar mantra bringing unexpected tears to her eyes. That's right. And if anyone tries to make you feel otherwise, you hold your head high and remember where you come from. Your mama and I, we cleaned offices in buildings like the one you work in now, but we never let anyone make us feel small. You understand me. I understand, Grandma. I love you, baby. Call me tomorrow and tell me about this presentation you're so worried about. After hanging up, Jasmine sat in the silence, her grandmother's words echoing in her mind. When she finally looked up, she found Alex watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Your grandmother sounds wonderful, he said softly. Jasmine's defenses flared. Don't what? Don't try to connect with me through my family. You've done enough damage. Alex set down his laptop and leaned forward. Jasmine, you want to know the truth? The whole truth. I think I've heard enough of your truth for one day. My parents died when I was 12. The words hung in the air like a confession. Despite herself, Jasmine found her anger wavering. Car accident, Alex continued, his voice steady but distant. I inherited everything, the company, the money, the responsibility. I've been living under a microscope ever since, with everyone from board members to distant relatives telling me who I should be, who I should marry, how I should spend my money. Jasmine remained silent, but she'd stopped pretending to work on her presentation. Do you know what it's like to never know if someone likes you or your bank account? To have every conversation, every relationship filtered through the knowledge that you're worth more to people as a business opportunity than as a human being. Is that supposed to make me feel sorry for you? Jasmine's voice was quiet, but there was steel in it. Poor little rich boy, so lonely in his penthouse? Alex flinched but pressed on. 3 months ago, my board suggested I needed a wife. Not for love, but for image. They had a list of suitable candidates, daughters of other CEOs, socialites with the right pedigree. When I balked, they pointed out that I'm 29 and single, and apparently that makes investors nervous. Something in his tone made Jasmine look up. There was pain there, real and raw, that she recognized because she'd felt it herself. The night before I started the intern charade, I attended a charity gala where a woman spent 2 hours telling me about her art collection while her eyes calculated the cost of my cufflinks. When I excused myself to the bathroom, I overheard her on the phone telling someone she'd hooked the fish and would be financially set for life within 6 months. Jasmine felt her chest tighten despite her anger. So you decided to slum it with the regular people? I decided to find out if it was possible for someone to like me without knowing what I was worth. His eyes met hers across the room. And then I met you. And I was your little experiment. No. The word came out sharp, desperate. Jasmine, what happened between us? That wasn't an experiment. When you laughed at my terrible jokes, when you shared your dreams about changing how companies connect with diverse communities, when you trusted me enough to tell me about your grandmother and the sacrifices your family made for your education, none of that was about money or status or any of the things that usually define my interactions with people. Jasmine stood and walked to the window, watching raindrops race each other down the glass. But you still lied to me. Yes, I did. You let me believe you were someone you're not. Actually, Alex said quietly, I think for the first time in years, I was exactly who I am, just without the money defining it. She turned to face him, and he saw the conflict in her expression, anger warring with understanding, hurt battling with empathy. My grandmother worked 3 jobs to help pay for my college, she said finally. My mother cleaned offices at night, so I could have tutoring during the day. I've been working since I was 14 because that's what you do when you want something your family can't afford to give you. Her voice grew stronger. I don't need your money, Alexander. I never wanted your money. But I needed your honesty, and you couldn't give me that. I wanted to. God, Jasmine, I wanted to tell you everything. But I was terrified that the moment you knew who I really was, you'd look at me the way everyone else does, like a problem to solve or an opportunity to exploit. So instead you made that choice for me. You decided I couldn't handle the truth. Alex felt the weight of that accusation settle in his chest. You're right. I was a coward. Outside, thunder rumbled closer, and both of them realized that more than the storm was reaching its breaking point. The power went out at exactly 8:23 p.m. One moment they were staring at each other across the emotional minefield of Alex's confession, and the next they were plunged into darkness, so complete that Jasmine instinctively reached out, her hand finding his arm in the blackness. Generator should kick in any second, Alex said, his voice closer than she'd expected. She could feel the warmth radiating from his body, smell his cologne mixed with something uniquely him that made her pulse quicken despite everything. But the generator didn't kick in. Emergency lighting from the hallway cast thin slivers of illumination under the door, but otherwise they were trapped in near-total darkness. Well, Jasmine said, her voice shaky with nerves and something else she didn't want to name, this night just keeps getting better. Alex moved carefully in the darkness, and she heard him rummaging through drawers. A moment later, the warm glow of candles began filling the space, revealing his profile as he lit them one by one. The flickering light softened the sharp edges of the apartment, making it feel less like a showroom and more like a home. Better, he asked. Better, she admitted, settling back onto the couch. The candlelight seemed to have stripped away some of her armor, leaving her feeling exposed but oddly safe. Alex sat on the opposite end of the couch, careful to maintain distance. Are you hungry? I could make us something. You cook. The question slipped out before she could stop it, curiosity overriding her resolve to keep things cold. One of the few normal skills I actually possess, he said with a self-deprecating smile. My housekeeper used to get so frustrated with me stealing time in the kitchen that she finally taught me properly just to keep me out of her way. Despite herself, Jasmine found her lips twitching upward. What kind of food? Italian, mostly. My mom was second-generation Italian-American, and she made sure I knew my way around pasta and proper sauce before. He stopped, the sentence hanging unfinished. Before she died, Jasmine finished softly. Yeah. Alex looked down at his hands. I was supposed to take over the company when I turned 30, but the board moved up the timeline after the accident. Said I needed to prove myself worthy of the Kane legacy. In the candlelight, stripped of his executive polish, he looked younger. Vulnerable. Jasmine felt her anger beginning to crack, revealing the hurt underneath. That's a lot of pressure for a kid, she said quietly. I used to sneak down to the company cafeteria sometimes when I was in high school. Not the executive dining room, the regular cafeteria where the administrative staff ate. I'd pretend to be a delivery guy or an intern, just so I could sit with people who talked about normal things. TV shows, weekend plans, their kids' soccer games. He looked up at her. I've been pretending to be normal for longer than you know. Something shifted in Jasmine's chest. Is that why you really did the intern thing? Not to test people, but because you missed being normal. I missed being seen, Alex said. Really seen. When you talked to me in the break room, when you laughed at my jokes, when you got excited about your marketing ideas, you were looking at Alex, not at a bank balance or a business opportunity. I've been chasing that feeling my whole adult life. Jasmine tucked her legs under her, the physical distance between them feeling less necessary somehow. You know, I used to do something similar in college. Yeah. I'd tell people my mom was a teacher instead of a cleaning lady. Not because I was ashamed of her, God, I'm so proud of what she accomplished, but because I was tired of being the scholarship kid or the one who overcame obstacles. Sometimes I just wanted to be Jasmine, not Jasmine despite her circumstances. Alex nodded, understanding flickering in his eyes. We both know what it's like to be defined by things we can't control. The difference is, you chose your deception. Mine was survival. You're right, he said immediately. I'm not trying to equate our situations. What I did to you was selfish and wrong, and I'm sorry. I'm so damn sorry, Jasmine. The apology, raw and sincere, hit her differently than his explanations had. She could see the regret in his face, the weight of guilt he was carrying. Why me? She asked suddenly. Out of everyone in that building, why did you start talking to me? Alex was quiet for a long moment, considering. Because when I first saw you in that elevator, you looked the way I felt. Like you were wearing armor, but wishing you didn't have to. And when you smiled, really smiled, not the polite work smile, it was like watching the sun come out. Jasmine felt heat rise in her cheeks. That's a very pretty way of saying I looked as uncomfortable as you felt. No, Alex said, his voice serious. It's a way of saying I recognized something in you that I'd never seen in anyone else. Someone who was brave enough to be real in a fake world. The candlelight flickered between them, and Jasmine felt the last of her walls beginning to crumble. I was so angry at you. You had every right to be. You still do. I know. She pulled a throw pillow into her lap, hugging it against her chest. But I'm tired of being angry. It's exhausting, carrying around all that hurt and betrayal. What can I do? Alex asked. How can I earn back even a fraction of your trust? Jasmine looked at him across the couch, really looked. In the soft light, she could see the boy who'd lost his parents too young, the man who'd been carrying impossible expectations, the person who'd been just as lonely as she was. Start by being honest, she said. No more games, no more half-truths. If we're going to try to figure out what this is between us, I need to know I'm talking to the real Alexander Kane. The real Alexander Kane, he repeated, testing the words. I'm not sure I remember who that is anymore. Then maybe, Jasmine said softly, we can figure it out together. The candles had burned low by the time Jasmine's phone buzzed with a text message that would destroy everything they'd just rebuilt. She glanced at the screen absently, expecting another message from her grandmother or maybe a work update. Instead, she saw a notification from her friend Keisha, along with a screenshot that made her blood turn to ice. Girl, you need to see this. Just posted on page 6 20 minutes ago. The headline read, Billionaire CEO's secret slumming, Alexander Kane caught playing intern while dating employee. Below it was a photo, grainy but unmistakable, of Alex and Jasmine in the break room 3 days ago, his hand covering hers across the table. The caption was worse. Sources inside Sterling Dynamics report that reclusive CEO Alexander Kane has been masquerading as an intern to pursue a romantic relationship with marketing analyst Jasmine Washington. Company insiders question whether this represents a pattern of inappropriate workplace behavior from the young billionaire. Jasmine's hands began to shake as she read further. The article speculated about power dynamics, quoted anonymous sources suggesting she might have known his identity all along, and included a paragraph analyzing the optics of a white billionaire's experimental relationship with a black employee. "Oh God," she whispered, the phone slipping from her fingers onto the couch. Alex, who had been adding more candles to combat the dying light, turned at the sound of her voice. "What's wrong?" She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Just pointed at the phone with a trembling hand. Alex picked up the device, and she watched his face transform as he read. Color drained from his cheeks, his jaw clenched, and when he looked up at her, she saw something that looked like panic in his eyes. "Jasmine, I can explain." "Explain what?" Her voice came out as a whisper, but the fury building beneath it was unmistakable. "Explain how private photos of us ended up in the tabloids? Explain how anonymous sources knew exactly what to say to make me look like some gold-digging opportunist. I didn't leak this. I would never." "Then who did?" She stood up so quickly the throw pillow tumbled to the floor. "Who else knew about your little charade, Alexander? Who else was watching us, documenting our private moments, turning them into entertainment for rich people's gossip rags?" Alex ran his hand through his hair, that gesture she now recognized as panic. "My security team monitors all company buildings. There are cameras everywhere for safety protocols. But I never authorized anyone to. Your security team." Jasmine's laugh was hollow, bitter. "Your security team has been watching us this whole time, recording us, and now it's out there for the world to see." She began pacing the length of his ridiculously expensive apartment, her mind racing through the implications. "Do you understand what this means for me? For my career? I'm the black woman who allegedly seduced the CEO. I'm the ambitious employee who supposedly used her sexuality to get ahead. It doesn't matter that none of it's true. The story is already written. We'll fix this," Alex said desperately. "I'll make a statement, clarify everything." "You'll make a statement?" Jasmine spun to face him, and he saw something in her eyes that made his stomach drop. "You'll go in front of cameras and explain that you were just amusing yourself with the help? That this was all some social experiment gone wrong? That's not what happened, and you know it." "Do I?" Her voice cracked with pain and rage. "Because looking at this article, seeing how quickly your security protocols turned our private moments into public humiliation, I'm starting to wonder if any of it was real for you." Alex took a step toward her, but she backed away. "Jasmine, please. What we built tonight, what we shared, that was real. This," he gestured at the phone, "this is just noise. Just noise." She laughed, and the sound was sharp enough to cut. "This noise is going to follow me for the rest of my career. Every job interview, every performance review, every time I walk into a room, people will whisper about the woman who slept her way toward the top. I'll protect you. I'll make sure." "You'll protect me?" The words exploded out of her. "You're the reason I need protecting. You put me in this position with your lies and your games and your inability to just be honest about who you are." Alex felt everything slipping away, felt the trust they'd spent hours rebuilding crumble to dust. "I never wanted this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did hurt me. You've destroyed my reputation, my credibility, everything I've worked for." Tears were streaming down her face now, but her voice remained steady. "And the worst part is, I was starting to believe you cared about me. I do care about you. Jasmine, I don't." She held up her hand, and he saw something die in her eyes. "Don't say it, because if you actually cared about me, you would have considered what this could cost me. You would have thought about what it means for a black woman to be linked romantically to her white billionaire boss. You would have protected me from this instead of putting me in a position where it could happen." The truth of her words hit him like a physical blow. In all his lonely desperation to connect with someone real, he'd never fully considered the cost to her. The privilege that allowed him to play dress-up as a regular person was the same privilege that would shield him from the worst of this scandal, while she would bear the brunt of the gossip and speculation. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "God, Jasmine, I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this." She was gathering her things now, stuffing her laptop into her bag with shaking hands. "Sorry doesn't give me back my privacy or my professional reputation. Where are you going?" "Home. To figure out how to salvage my career from the wreckage of your little identity crisis. The storm. I'll walk if I have to." She paused at the door, her hand on the handle. "You know what the cruelest part is? For a few hours tonight, I actually thought we had something real. I thought maybe I'd found someone who saw me as more than just another obstacle to overcome or achievement to unlock." Alex felt his heart breaking. "You are more than that. You're everything." "No," Jasmine said quietly. "I'm just another casualty of Alexander Kane's need to feel normal. And that's all I'll ever be." The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like the end of the world. At 3:47 a.m., Jasmine sat on her grandmother's couch in Queens, staring at her laptop screen through swollen eyes. The story had exploded across social media. #InTernGate was trending. Think pieces about workplace power dynamics were already being published. Her LinkedIn had received 47 connection requests from reporters. Her phone buzzed constantly, unknown numbers, college friends who'd seen the news, former colleagues offering sympathy that felt more like pity. She'd turned off the notifications hours ago, but the silence somehow felt worse. "Baby girl," her grandmother said, appearing in the doorway with 2 cups of tea. "You need to sleep." "I can't sleep, Grandma. Every time I close my eyes, I see that photo. I see the comments." Jasmine's voice was hoarse from crying. "They're calling me every name in the book. Gold digger, social climber, user. And the ones defending me are almost worse, acting like I'm some victim who couldn't possibly have agency in my own life." Her grandmother settled beside her on the couch, the same couch where Jasmine had done homework as a child, where she'd cried over her first heartbreak, where she'd celebrated her college acceptance. "What does your heart tell you about this boy?" "That's just it. I don't know what's real anymore." Jasmine leaned into her grandmother's familiar warmth. "When I'm with him, when it's just us talking, it feels like coming home. But then I remember the lies, the deception, and I wonder if I'm just seeing what I want to see." Her grandmother sipped her tea thoughtfully. "You know, when your grandfather and I first met, I thought he was the handsomest, smoothest talking man I'd ever seen. Too smooth. Figured he was probably married with 3 children and a wandering eye." Despite everything, Jasmine smiled slightly. "But he wasn't." "No, but I didn't know that. So I made him prove it. Made him work for my trust, piece by piece, day by day. Love isn't about the moment you meet someone, baby. It's about the choice you make every day after that. He made his choice when he lied to me. And now you have to make yours. What kind of woman do you want to be? The kind who lets other people's opinions define her story, or the kind who writes her own ending?" Meanwhile, across the city, Alex stood in his empty apartment watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of regret. He hadn't slept either. His phone had been ringing nonstop, his board of directors, his PR team, his lawyers, all demanding immediate crisis management. He'd ignored them all. The newspapers were spread across his kitchen island like evidence of his failures. The Times had run a surprisingly balanced piece about workplace dynamics and corporate accountability. The Post had gone with a more sensational angle. The Wall Street Journal questioned his fitness to lead a major corporation. None of them mattered. The only opinion he cared about belonged to a woman who probably never wanted to see him again. His assistant Patricia had left 17 voicemails, each more urgent than the last. The final one had been stark. "Sir, the board is calling an emergency meeting for 9 a.m. They're discussing your future with the company. You need to be there." Alex looked at his reflection in the darkened window. For years, he'd let the board dictate his life, his schedule, his public appearances, even his romantic prospects. They'd seen him as a figurehead, a pretty face to put on their quarterly reports while they made the real decisions behind closed doors. But losing Jasmine had crystallized something he'd been avoiding for months. He was tired of being their puppet. His phone buzzed with a text from the board chairman. Meeting moved to 8 a.m. Your statement better be convincing. Alex deleted the message without responding. Instead, he scrolled through his contacts until he found the number he needed. Channel 7 News, this is Miranda. Miranda, this is Alexander Kane. I'd like to schedule an exclusive interview about the Sterling Dynamics situation. Can you be here in 2 hours? At 6:30 a.m., Jasmine's phone rang with a call from her direct supervisor. Jasmine, I'm sorry to call so early, but we need to discuss your employment status. Janet's voice was carefully neutral. HR wants to see you at 9 a.m. Jasmine closed her eyes. She'd been expecting this. I understand. For what it's worth, your work has been exemplary. This situation, it's complicated. After hanging up, Jasmine sat in the growing daylight and realized she had a choice to make. She could slink away quietly, accept whatever severance package they offered, and spend months rebuilding her reputation. Or she could fight for the career she'd earned, regardless of who Alexander Kane turned out to be. Her grandmother found her 20 minutes later, dressed in her best suit and applying lipstick with steady hands. Where are you going, baby? To work, Jasmine said, meeting her own eyes in the mirror. I'm not letting anyone write my story for me. At 7:45 a.m., Alex sat across from Miranda Chun in his apartment, cameras rolling. He'd dismissed his PR team's prepared statement and the board's talking points. This was going to be the truth, regardless of the consequences. Mr. Kane, why did you decide to speak out this morning? Alex looked directly into the camera, thinking of a woman in Queens who was probably getting ready for the fight of her professional life. Because I hurt someone I care about, and I need to make it right. Not for my company, not for my board of directors, but because she deserves better than the narrative that's being written about her. And because sometimes the only way to prove you've changed is to risk everything that's kept you safe. The interviewer leaned forward. Are you prepared for the consequences of what you're about to say? Alex thought about his empty apartment, his lonely life, the board that had never seen him as more than an asset to manage. Then he thought about Jasmine's laugh, her passion, the way she'd made him want to be worthy of her trust. I'm prepared to lose everything if it means telling the truth, he said. Starting now. The Sterling Dynamics lobby buzzed with unusual energy as Jasmine walked through the revolving doors at 8:55 a.m. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Phones appeared as people pretended to check messages while actually watching her every move. She kept her spine straight and her eyes forward, channeling every ounce of her grandmother's strength. 3 floors up, the HR conference room felt like a tribunal. Janet sat beside 2 executives Jasmine recognized but had never spoken to, their expressions carefully neutral. A packet of papers waited at the empty chair across from them. Ms. Washington, please sit down, the older man said. I'm Richard Thompson, head of human resources. We need to discuss the situation that's developed regarding your relationship with our CEO. Jasmine remained standing. Before we begin, I'd like to clarify something. I had no knowledge of Alexander Kane's true identity during our interactions. I believed him to be an intern named Alex Collins. Any suggestion that I pursued a relationship for professional advancement is categorically false. Nevertheless, the woman beside Thompson said, the situation has created significant complications for the company. We're prepared to offer you a generous severance package. I don't want severance, Jasmine interrupted. I want to keep my job. I've done nothing wrong, and I won't be punished for someone else's deception. Thompson cleared his throat. Ms. Washington, surely you understand the optics. I understand that a black woman is about to be sacrificed to protect a white billionaire's reputation, Jasmine said, her voice steady as steel. Is that the optics you're concerned about? The room fell silent. Before anyone could respond, Janet's phone buzzed with an urgent message. She glanced at it, and her eyebrows shot up. Turn on channel 7, she said quickly. Thompson reached for the remote, and suddenly Alexander Kane's face filled the conference room screen. Jasmine's breath caught in her throat. I want to be absolutely clear about what happened, Alex was saying, looking directly into the camera with an intensity that made her chest tighten. I made the decision to assume a false identity as an intern at my own company. This was not a corporate initiative, not a publicity stunt, and certainly not an attempt to manipulate or test anyone. It was the desperate act of someone who had forgotten how to connect with people authentically. The interviewer leaned forward. What about your relationship with Ms. Washington? Jasmine Washington is the most intelligent, principled, and remarkable person I've ever met, Alex said without hesitation. She treated me with kindness and respect when she believed I was nobody special. She shared her dreams and her struggles with someone she thought was just another intern trying to make it in the corporate world. Everything about our connection was genuine. The only dishonest element was my failure to tell her who I really was. Jasmine felt tears prick her eyes as Alex continued. Any suggestion that Ms. Washington pursued this relationship for professional gain is not only false, but insulting to a woman who has earned everything she's achieved through talent and hard work. She's being punished for my deception, and that's unacceptable. What about the impact on your company? Alex's expression hardened. If my board of directors believes that a CEO should prioritize corporate image over taking responsibility for his actions, then perhaps they need a different CEO. The camera zoomed in as Alex made his final statement. I'm hereby announcing my resignation from Sterling Dynamics, effective immediately. Jasmine Washington should keep her job, continue her excellent work, and be judged solely on her professional merits. As for me, I need to figure out who Alexander Kane really is when he's not hiding behind titles or trust funds. The interview ended, and the conference room sat in stunned silence. Thompson was the first to speak. Well, that changes things considerably. Jasmine found her voice. Am I still being fired? I think, Janet said carefully, we need to reassess the situation entirely. 2 hours later, Jasmine walked out of the building with her job intact, a formal apology from HR, and a head spinning with everything that had just happened. Alex had sacrificed his position, the empire he'd inherited, the responsibility he'd carried since childhood, to protect her reputation. She was halfway to the subway when her phone rang. Jasmine. Alex's voice was uncertain, vulnerable in a way she'd never heard before. I saw the interview, she said quietly. I know it doesn't fix everything. I know trust isn't rebuilt with grand gestures. But I needed to tell the truth, publicly and completely. You gave up everything. I gave up a life that was making me miserable to protect the only person who's ever made me happy. His voice cracked slightly. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything. I just needed you to know that what we had was real for me. The realest thing I've ever experienced. Jasmine closed her eyes, feeling something shift in her chest. Where are you? Central Park. The reservoir. It's where I used to come as a kid when the pressure got too much. Stay there, she said. I'm coming. She found him sitting on a bench overlooking the water, looking younger and more uncertain than she'd ever seen him. When he saw her approaching, he stood slowly, as if afraid sudden movement might spook her. You came, he said. You quit your job for me, she replied. Seemed like the least I could do was show up. They stood 3 feet apart, the distance feeling both too much and not enough. I'm sorry, Alex said. For all of it. For lying, for deception, for not protecting you from the fallout. You deserved better. Yes, Jasmine said simply. I did. Can you ever forgive me? Jasmine studied his face, really looked at him, seeing not the billionaire CEO or the fake intern, but just Alex. Flawed, lonely, trying to figure out how to be human. Ask me again in 6 months, she said. After you've figured out who you are when nobody's watching. And if I do, figure it out, I mean. For the first time in days, Jasmine smiled. Then maybe we can start over. Properly this time. Hi, I'm Jasmine Washington. Alex's answering smile was like a sunrise. Hi, Jasmine. I'm Alexander Kane, but my friends call me Alex. Nice to meet you, Alex, she said, extending her hand. Want to get some coffee and tell me about yourself? The real story this time. As they walked toward the park exit, hands linked and hearts cautiously hopeful, both of them understood that this wasn't an ending, it was a beginning. The real work of building trust, of learning to love authentically, lay ahead. But for the first time in either of their lives, they weren't facing it alone. What does it mean to you when someone chooses truth over comfort, vulnerability over safety, and love over everything they thought they wanted?